Hey there! Today's video is about a Half-Life 2 mod that I believe to be very important, a mod with many ups and downs and an important story of passion. Being almost fully forgotten to time, Get Alive is a full conversion Half-Life 2 mod that released in 2008, close to 16 years ago now. It features some very unique gameplay and introduces mechanics I have never seen before. Since the release of the mod, there were never any more news about the mod or from the team behind it. Seed, a French team. Initially releasing to mixed reviews, it ended up gaining a few very loyal fans in the Half-Life community, being the mod that I got the most comments about by far. And I get why. I played it for the first time just recently and immediately fell in love with it, but at the same time, I would not recommend you to play it before watching this video. There is close to no documentation about this 10-hour long mod online, which meant that I had to piece together its complex story using awfully translated blocks of text and $1 microphone voice acting. And the little help of getting in contact with the original creator. Yep, I have some cool insider info to share toward the end of this, as the creator of this mod is still active on the mod email and loves to answer questions. So stay tuned for that. This video will be a summary, analysis and review of Get Alive, with which I hope to finally give this mod the attention it deserves and to share the very important story it has to tell. Let us not waste any more time though and get right into the mod. Before that though, this video is sponsored by Displate. If you have somehow not heard of Displate yet, they create incredible looking metallic posters of all your favorite franchises. Forget about ordinary paper or canvas prints. Displate's high quality metallic printing takes your favorite designs to a whole new level. Displates come with an easy and unique magnetic installing process that requires no drilling, which means these are a no-brainer for anyone looking to spice up their room with some great looking artwork. You can find over 1 million designs on Displate, which means there is something for everyone. You can find designs of artists as well as those of iconic franchises and games. Say Star Wars, Marvel, DC, Warcraft, The Witcher and my personal favorites, Left 4 Dead, Portal and other Valve games. Every single Displate is printed in the European Union and hand-signed by the master of production, thus ensuring a very high quality. I personally opted for a few Portal and Left 4 Dead displays just recently. Look at how incredible they look. I also got a Hello Kitty one because, well, hey, why not? By clicking on my link in the description you'll find my page where I put together a few collections for you guys of Valve games and other things. By looking in the top right corner of the website, you'll pretty much always find some kind of sale. As of the release of this video, by using code WEEKEND at checkout, that is WKND, you receive 50% off on one and 25% off on 2 or more displays. This sale ends soon. They also have incredibly fast shipping, with the expected delivery time being between 4 and 5 business days. So if you want to have some beautiful artwork in your room or perhaps buy an awesome gift for someone and support me by doing so, head down to the link in the description and start to collect your passions on Displate. For full disclosure, I do receive a commission when you buy something using my link. This of course comes at no extra cost of your own. This means that if you do shop on Displate using my link, you are not only getting something nice for yourself, you are also supporting me greatly. So if you do decide to do just that, thank you. Okay, to start off, once you install this mod and start it, you are greeted with the most annoying intro I have ever experienced. You will have to watch this intro a lot of times, since this mod crashes a bunch due to its old age. The menu looks glitchy and plays a custom soundtrack, one that I think accurately sets the mood. Once you start a new game, you are greeted by a cutscene. The text reads, "You're Alexander Zemlinsky, suffering from leukemia for 4 years. Your sister, a biologist, takes care of you in an apartment in Skiptel. You're a maintenance technician at the city subway and it's time to go to work." I'm gonna use this cutscene to quickly promote the Discord. Right as this video launches, the community vote for the winner of the Cut Weapons of Half-Life 2 art competition will begin, so consider joining and voting for your favorite. Link is in the description. The use of cutscenes is generally frowned upon in a Half-Life setting.
You faced up my fuck.
Given that this is a total conversion mod though, it doesn't really matter, and it's very much up to the developers themselves if they feel like including cutscenes. It can be and has been argued that cutscenes, specifically ones that take you out of the point of view of the protagonist, are immersion breaking. I personally agree with this, though I also think that cutscenes do have their place in gaming, as long as it's not overdone and less fitting the theme. Say Uncharted for example. That game is basically a movie with a few playable sections. But we love it for that, because it was intended to be just that. If you have been in the Source modding community for some time, you will immediately catch the classic vibe of this mod. It uses the old Half-Life 2 engine, and does so gracefully. Old mods have a charm to them, similar to the one catched in mods like 1187 or Underhell. 2 mods that I generally believe have a similar vibe to this one. In case you have no idea what those mods are, I recommend watching my videos on those 2 as well. It's something about the too bright lighting of areas, mix and match of textures and models of all Valve games and other assets they most likely had no permission to use, that simply invokes nostalgia. It reminds me of playing Gmod for the first time when I was a child and loading up a random CSS map because you didn't know how to install custom maps. It's exactly that feeling. Once we leave this apartment and the scary spiders in the terrarium behind to go to work, we find a living town. You might notice that it looks pretty European, which is something that I believe we need a term coined for. Source mods made by people living in Europe in which you clearly notice the inspiration of their home country. We had this with the 1187 as well. The maker of that mod, Joude, comes from the Netherlands, something you immediately notice when playing that mod. The makers of this mod are from France, and you notice that vibe immediately. And to be clear, both 1187 and Get Alive are both set in the Netherlands and France respectively. I'm gonna call mod with this trope Euromod. Nah shit, that's already a thing. Well, then we'll go with Eurosourced. Oh come on, it's awesome. I'm just gonna leave it to the comments to come up with a name. So if you have any ideas, let me know. Moving around this town, you will find that all the citizens look normal. An unusual sight in a Half-Life 2 mod, as most just opt for the regular citizen models with common provided clothing. Even when they are set in the Half-Life universe, you can also interact with most of these. It's seemingly just a normal town, be it somewhat desolate. I genuinely enjoy this beginning area though, even if people do still call you Freeman.
Hello, Dr. Freeman.
Editing the standard responses for a mod isn't easy, so I get why this happens. By this point playing this mod, you will have noticed the amount of love put into it, something I get into a lot more later. On our way to work, we have to jump through this weird hole, to which a cutscene plays where we see the telephone ring, the caller being our sister.
Shit, answering machine. Alex, this is your sister Rachel. I want you to go to the research laboratory as quick as you can. I made a mistake about the treatment I'm giving you. I hope you'll listen to this message.
Alexander obviously doesn't actually hear this, thus we head forward, knowing that something is wrong. I feel like this cutscene, perhaps unknowingly, sets the scene a little bit by separating us and the protagonist. We, the player, know more than the person we're playing as, thus a disconnect has occurred. We start to think of Alex as someone that's not us. We can't actually immerse ourselves. Given that Alex doesn't talk anyways, this isn't too big of a deal, as we could just interpret whatever. Perhaps Alex has an omniscient perspective of the universe and is actually aware of the phone call. Given where the story will go eventually, this isn't fully implausible. Moving on though, we now have to drive to work using a pretty intricate subway system, something I've never seen done before in a source mod. I like it though. You actually have to use maps and have a pretty good chance of getting lost. A downside being that the trains are loud. The sound mixing is generally really bad in this mod, which is something I've never found to be a problem before in any mod really. Look, just to be clear, I fell in love with this mod, but it does have its rough edges. Quite a few actually. One thing I do like is that you can actually come across a few different world building scenes while running around the stations. The size of the world is artificially inflated by just looping stations, but trust me, you are able to get lost. I got lost for about 30 minutes here. Eventually we arrive at work and are tasked with fixing a generator. On the way there, the facility is noticeably falling apart, similar to what we saw in Half-Life 1 pre-disaster. And eventually we get beaten up once we're in a dark room. We awake again in a hospital, now in the second chapter. Now I must say I didn't go into this with a cutscene equals bad attitude. However, this game does feature a lot of useless cutscenes. This one for example. I don't think this was needed. We get the next story revelation here. We find this pod with what looks to be a zombie inside, to which we see an inner monologue of Alex.
Whoa, this guy look exactly like me. Where am I? He need to find a way out, and quick.
I'm gonna leave this plot point without further explanation for now, because that is exactly what the game did for the first, 9 hours? We fight more zombies in this hospital and after escaping collapse through a floor, knocking us unconscious, to which we have nightmares. The mod uses these nightmares to explain some of the systems this mod has, the ones that make it unique specifically. The game features a pretty intricate damage system, a highlight of this mod. To interact with it you have to open this menu. Here you can see possible negative status effect and a view of your body's health. The global health bar down here controls your HP. Everything else has to be healed individually. Both the global health bar and the body parts consume 1 health kit per use. 1 health kit healing 20% of the maximum HP. If one body part is damaged too much, it will cause a status effect. Here's all of them explained. Getting hit with a headshot will cause you to receive disturbed vision. Disturbed vision makes your vision go blurry, and not just a bit, it's really irritating. Getting your arms damaged will give you the bullseye effect, which does the opposite of what the symbol leads you to believe. Your aim gets really inaccurate. Getting hit anywhere can cause bleeding. This will cause you to take damage every second. Getting hit in your feet will cause the no running effect, which disables sprint. All of these effects last forever. They can only be stopped by healing that body part. Bleeding is a bit different, you need a different item to stop that. Then there is one last item I haven't talked about. That is these little things. These things cause bullet time. You most likely know what bullet time means. Basically, it slows down time and makes your bullets actual projectiles. You can always see how many of each item you have in your HUD. You also see status effects above your health and sprint bar in the corner. This sounds a lot more complex than it is actually though. It actually makes for a very good system, albeit a hard one. After awaking from the tutorial dreams, we receive our first weapon, the pipe. Shortly after which you find a seemingly normal city. People everywhere, shops are running, like nothing ever happened. It's in this city we also find our second weapon, a pistol. You might notice how this mod features a lot of custom weapons. In fact, no weapon seen in this mod is one seen in regular Half-Life 2. The pistol itself doesn't have much noteworthy about it. It feels pretty good to use, but doesn't have much difference from the regular Half-Life 2 pistol. Also, ammo in this mod is split up into mags. This doesn't have any gameplay difference, as you can still reload on half a mag and then also only take half a mag of your reserve ammo. The peace of this town doesn't last long though. Shortly afterwards, an alarm is sounded and some sort of private army arrives. By looking on their arm, we see they're called Evis. This is the first time you get in a gunfight in this mod, and holy shit, this mod is a challenge. Each shot that lands on you has a very good chance of somewhat crippling you, leading to a huge consumption of the rather rare medkits. And I love it. Alex is not a bullet sponge, which is part of what makes this mod so great. You seriously have to think about every single move instead of just running and gunning. It took me a solid 10 attempts to beat this first fight. We also receive our next weapons in this fight. Grenades, which basically are the same as any regular old grenade, and the P90. The gun that is in my opinion the strongest gun of this mod. The weapons generally are designed pretty well, especially in terms of looks and sounds, and from all I've seen, it seems that all of these were actually made by the team behind this mod, which is awesome. As we continue through this area, you might notice that it gives off quite the Counter-Strike Source vibe. And taking a look at the map from above, it even looks like one. I couldn't find any matching CSS map, but I could imagine this being a recycled CSS map of one of the developers, which I actually got confirmed by the developer, who said that this project originally started out as a team of people recycling the old maps into a story, though this plan somewhat failed in the end as this mod started adding more and more features, with only 4 of the 23 maps of this mod being recycled ones. If I had to guess, this is one of them. We eventually find this guy, a scientist. Unfortunately, this is where one of the mod's main problems comes to shine, the voice acting.
Hey, you, come on over here. Yeah, I know you're Alexander Zemlinsky, aren't you? Come to me, it's important. I need to talk to you. To free me, go behind the prison and climb up to the railing, please. Hurry up.
This is one of the examples of better voice acting in this mod, funnily enough, even if it's pitched really low. There are closed captions you can enable in the settings though, thankfully. Another interesting detail is that the team behind this mod was made up of a ton of different nationalities, which is why this game features both English and French localization, and English, French, German, Czech, Spanish, Finnish and Swedish subtitles. A pretty awesome feat. On the way to save the scientists, the next issue becomes clear. Mazy level design. I ran around this one room like 20 times before noticing that there is a button in the corner of one of the hallways. The main issue being lighting. While it looks nice, it wasn't used at all for gameplay purposes, something that's really important when designing a map. The next issue is the bullet time mode. As cool as it may sound and even look, I found myself rarely using it at all, the main issue being the slow bullets. Of course I can agree that it looks f***ing rad, but it sadly causes you to basically miss all your bullets if the target isn't stationary. And with most fights in this mod taking place at safe distances due to the lethality of each of the soldiers' shots, this feature ends up being basically useless. It's more meant for a run and gun kind of playstyle, which this mod definitely doesn't have. Which again, I love that it doesn't for a change. Most mods go for the seemingly invincible protagonist, so to see a change from that feels refreshing. It does however make bullet time not fit in at all. I want to quickly mention a pretty cool feature I noticed, which is that the Evis soldiers actually peek around corners, something that even the comment at Half-Life 2 didn't do. The creator mentioned to me that after they managed to create more intelligent AI, like the enemies hiding and peeking around corners as I just mentioned, they almost ended up working together with Arcane Studios, the people that also made Episode 4 Return to Ravenholm at around the same time. Though the creator of this mod didn't seem to know anything about that when I asked him. Which is fine, it's been over 16 years now. After we eventually reach the scientist in his prison, he tells us a bit about what's going on. Sadly, once more, this is completely undecipherable.
The virus has been released in the city's laboratory.
He's basically saying that he worked with our sister on the Tris HC1 project, but he cuts himself off to say that there's no time. The virus has apparently been released in the city's laboratory, and the Evis are here to eliminate the threat, and will bomb the location soon. He suggests finding a safe place right before the bombs actually start dropping. Professor Hermes, as he revealed he's called, is dead. We start moving through the same town once more, destroyed. Filled with zombies and my worst enemy. Yeah, I can't do spiders for shit. These spiders were custom modeled by the team and were teased at in the intro, which is awesome. I personally couldn't take it though and thus went and modded the mod to turn the spiders back into headcrabs. Sorry. I also could never even touch that one game Pyrocynical showed in his recent video with the huge spiders.
Nah.
Perhaps as a 100k sub special stream. When watching the rest of this video, be aware that anytime there's a headcrab, it's actually a huge spider. The zombies are also all remodeled and retextured, which is awesome. They even feature a gips system where you can shoot their heads off, which is fun. You might notice that I never have my flashlight enabled. This is due to no flashlight existing in this mod. You instead find the flashlight launcher. With this weapon you are able to shoot flares. These last for a very short amount of time, like around 20 seconds at most. A unique gameplay element, even if it is a bit annoying having to switch your weapon to shoot a flare first to see anything when there's a zombie right in front of you. But again, this mod isn't meant to be easy. We also find the deagle, which is fun. By the way, I love how the HUD elements spin around. We also see first teasers at another type of zombie, who we meet only shortly afterwards. It seems to function the same as a normal fast zombie of Half-Life 2, just with a lot more HP and twice the size. A bit of a mini-boss. We eventually enter a sewer, which had a clever piece of gameplay that I felt like mentioning. It is hard to come up with unique gameplay mechanics these days with thousands of source mods being out there, and most puzzles that one can do also exist already. So to see a new one is always nice. In this case, there were poison headcrabs, or well, spiders, combined with electrical water. The water itself did minimal damage, but combined with the poison headcrabs that take you down to 1 HP, this was deadly. A pretty cleverly designed room. Not too long after this, we meet the first human since the bombing. He says that there are
survivors of the school. We have to go find them.
In my playthrough, he then died to a fire. I do enjoy the fact that companions are able to die. And to be clear, this guy doesn't have much further relevance. We do also find a shotgun next to him, a pretty powerful weapon, mostly similar to the Half-Life 2 one, just with a different model. Just around the corner we also find said school and its survivors and enter survival mode. We get a radar showing us NPCs while we have to fend off waves of enemies. This area rewards you for exploring, as when you look up, you are able to completely block off a path from where zombies spawn using a large dumpster. This is a pretty fun section, though I actually am not sure how long you have to fend off enemies here for, since at a certain point I simply notice a door behind me being open. The enemies seem to spawn infinitely. Once you enter, the path will be blocked off and will in most cases leave the NPCs behind, which would happen in a second anyways. We find a character who speaks with us who may have the worst voice acting I've ever heard. Hard down the Freeman doesn't hold a candle to this. First have a listen without subtitles.
Collapsing and contaminated beings won't go faster. I'm the guardian of this school. This is the impact in there too. But there remains one way to get out. The sewers. Passing through the canteen you can access the basement. I imagine you're not going to stay here. So follow me quietly, okay?
Now here it is with subtitles.
Collapsing and contaminated beings won't go faster. I'm the guardian of this school. This is the impact in there too. But there remains one way to get out. The sewers. Passing through the canteen you can access the basement. I imagine you're not going to stay here. So follow me quietly, okay?
I don't even blame the guy who did the recording himself, as I don't think his accent is the main problem here. Having an accent is something you can hardly change. Hell, listen to my German ass slurring through the script. And it is nice to challenge yourself to voice act for something even with an accent. It can add charm to a character even. Pick off all the TF2 characters and their distinct accents. If you do want to voice act for a project though, at least make sure to read your lines correctly.
Collapsing and contaminated beings won't...
And perhaps get a better microphone. You can do multiple takes. And I can't imagine that is what this person did here. And whoever mixed the sound or set the scene up in general, don't add tons of reverb to an already muffled voice, and perhaps make sure there is an NPC just spamming his shotgun into the ground right next to the player, when a soundtrack is playing at the same time and double the volume of the person talking. Tons of things went wrong here. And thankfully, there are closed captions. I just don't see how it went this catastrophically bad. In case any of you want to make a mod, and perhaps are not fluent in English but desperately want to have a voice acting role, try and find someone who is fluent that can then watch over your voice acting, and will tell you what to improve. As you saw, the guy told us to go into the sewers to escape the school. But why even escape? The main gameplay loop of this mod now starts. Throughout the entirety of the mod, we are basically completely aimless or clueless as to what is going on. No real goal or direction. Even if you happen to understand what the characters are telling you, there isn't much content to what they're saying. Through context clues it can be assumed you want to escape the contaminated area, but how big is that contaminated area? What happened with her sister? Where are we going? All of these are questions you will eventually forget about as these levels stretch on and on. But let me not get ahead of myself. Generally speaking, on looks of the level design, it's alright. The style and quality varies greatly throughout the mod. This is due to there being multiple level designers. But for the very most part, I really enjoyed the environments created throughout this mod. Some levels have a CSS feel to them, while others feel distinctly Half-Life 2. It does often need you to wonder where the hell you are. It kind of reminds me of what I myself used to do with Gmod horror maps. I would think of multiple different concepts and then just somehow connect those together. You fall down a 200 feet hole and suddenly you're just outside again. It's that vibe that I get from the levels of this mod. We also find a new weapon, the silenced pistol.
Yay!
To speak on cutscenes once more, some of them were really weird. Like this one. If you decide to add cutscenes to your mod, you have to follow a few principles. Besides the obvious ones like them looking and sounding good, one of the most important factors is purpose. This cutscene served no purpose. And to be clear, this angle could be used very nicely. Perhaps introduce a new threat, add a creepy alien sound to this cutscene, and suddenly it's a great way to build suspense. Then afterwards you get this cutscene. This one felt more creative, but also unmotivated. Later on in the mod they will do this exact cutscene once more and do it way better. So I keep my judgment for now. But what we basically saw thus far is seemingly an antlion guard running through random areas. Shortly afterwards, however, we see another cutscene where it jumps down right in front of us. It's got a greyish red texture. I do wonder what this creature is supposed to be in this universe. All other enemies seem to be existing creatures changed by the Tris HC1 virus. The zombies are infected humans, the spiders are mutated spiders. The antlion guard, however, is something of its own. The boss fight is actually pretty fun, if a little unfair. Be sure to not stay around this pile of debris, as this antlion guard will throw those at you and insta-kill you. By the way, for the love of God, if you decide to play this mod, have your quick save button ready at all times. The game barely does autosaving, like close to none. After dying once in its antlion guard battle, I was thrown back about 25 minutes. This didn't only happen here, this happened in basically every level. So best you might your W key to both forwards movement and quick save. What I loved about this fight was the fact that the arena is destructible by the antlion guard, like this huge computer wall breaking and causing the lights to flicker. A small detail that adds a lot to the environment. Perhaps speak on the difficulty once more, this game is incredibly unforgiving. Like for example this room here. It featured a ton of explosive barrels and a blocked path. After attempting to break the path and shooting at the gas from afar to no avail, I simply placed an explosive barrel in front of the door and shot it. This didn't work. And then a random explosions a few seconds later almost got me. Alright here, a possible softlock. After a very needless cutscene that introduces a wood board as the thing blocking us from moving forward, it's revealed that we have to shoot that piece of wood. However, this game goes against usual game design practices by not giving us any ammo supply here. Sure, you received some earlier, but right at this point, you only received a handful of grenades. If you were to fail your throws, which I somehow managed, there is a good chance to be stuck. Sure, this is unrealistic, and the saving system exists for a reason. It is however a usual game design practice that if the player is required to shoot at something to continue, that there is some form of infinite ammo source nearby. If you are ever stuck in a Half-Life 2 mod or the Half-Life 2 game itself and you have an ammo crate nearby, you can safely assume that whatever puzzle you're doing has to do with that resource you find in there. This mod does no handholding, which is usually what you get from other games. As someone who's very deep into general level design practices, this felt weird, but it also adds a unique vibe to this mod. Valve's game design process involved getting tons of playtesters to play their games. Sometimes even people off the street with no video game experience at all, as they wanted the game to be beatable by everyone. This is why Valve games feel so smooth. Every rough edge was discovered thanks to tons of playtesting. If you were to get someone with little to no video game experience to play this, there is a good chance you could get stuck. But again, I'm not here to pass too much judgment on this. I enjoy it in this context. I simply found it noteworthy and perhaps a learning experience for some. After falling down another hole, we arrive in some sort of church-looking building, immediately hearing laughter. This seems to set up some sort of character similar to Father Grigori, something that I was actually pretty excited for. This level later turns out to be more of a manor than a church, filled to the brim with zombies and spiders. There's also a monk-like zombie boss that has a ton of HP and for some reason, some zombies here disintegrate. There is no explanation for this in the mod. Then I came across this room alongside this music. For some reason this really resonated with me. In the moment I described this in my head as childhood lighting. Light that just looks so warm and beautiful. The sun either rising or setting. The music added a contrast to it that is just perfect. My favorite levels of Half-Life 2 are the later water hazard levels. Specifically for the skybox and lighting. The saturated yellow light of the setting sun is so beautiful and cozy. It reminded me of how the world used to look when I was younger. To be fair, most likely blinded by nostalgia, the world used to look a lot warmer and bloomier. This room perfectly encapsulated that, and is probably one I'll remember from time to time. We eventually fall back down into more sewers, have some fun encounters with grenades and also with Evis to eventually find this person. This guy's dialogue was broken from what it seemed. He eventually started speaking after I jumped on top of his head out of frustration. He begins to explain at about 1 decibel that Evis are preparing an assault on their baits. He then says, and I quote, "On the other hand, we have reached to get our hands on a new viral mutation thanks to a rock crusher." I have no idea what the sentence is supposed to convey, so let's just ignore it for now. Simply put, the rock crusher seems to be pretty important. He brings us to some sort of armory, where we then get to read a letter on the ground. TLDR, EVIS stands for Emergency Viral Infestation Section. They're here to eradicate everyone and everything to protect their interests. Which sounds like a smart sentence, but doesn't really mean anything when you think about it. There are talks of huge-scale virus affairs and others of monsters. Communication has been completely cut off except for a few low frequencies, and the best bet may be to hide underground. We then have another cutscene of someone commanding his soldiers. Again, completely irrelevant. The cinematic bars don't even match the screen length. We then enter a huge shootout with the EVIS soldiers. We also receive a new weapon here, the Stayer. A pretty fun but also inaccurate weapon. You basically never hit exactly where your crosshair is pointing at. The fight is really hard, we even encounter some new soldiers here. They seem to be direct copies of the command soldiers of Half-Life 2, but transparent. They are part of EVIS from all it seems. This area was one of the weirdest ones of the mod really. I did like how you could go and explore other buildings for extra loot. However, this vending machine gave you coke even though the sprite button is glowing, making me have to give this mod a 0 out of 10. We then meet another group of people who plan an assault, which results in a pretty long distance fight, which once more makes bullet time basically useless. We then meet who I believe to be the insane guy that was teased at earlier with the laughing at the manor, who you probably have forgotten already. He shows us a church which is completely submerged underground. A pretty interesting set piece that poses a lot of questions. I love me a good mystery, so I enjoyed this. However, this goes nowhere. After a short fight with zombies, we jump on a hole and the entire plot point vanishes. Unfortunate, really. We then have to find our way out of the spider-infested basement of the church, which also looks really mysterious. There are a ton of skulls here, so we definitely weren't the first ones the insane guy sent down here. It makes it seem like he wanted us to die here. We obviously don't, and instead managed to find this guy with a funny American accent, who again sends us somewhere.
Find a way in the town hall to go to the sewers!
You might notice how this entire mod simply consists of people telling us to go somewhere for no actual reason. It's pretty tiring, to say the least. We then loop back to where we met those invisible combat soldiers earlier and fight against a helicopter using a law rocket launcher. A pretty fun idea. You can only pick up one at a time, each of them having one shot and no laser guidance. A fun fight, actually. We then go back to the rock crusher, which is still important for some reason, and find an evil soldier tampering with it, to which it explodes, knocking us out. We then awake after an unknown amount of time to some guy who tells us that we are trapped, that there is only one way out. Again, person telling us where to go for no apparent reason. We then encounter a new, pretty creepy enemy, flesh monsters. These are just reskinned antlions, but they look really creepy. We venture deeper into wherever we are, arriving at more unexplained places. To quickly speak on the weapons once more, the weapons are fun but weren't balanced all that well. Even though we have received a ton of weapons already, it is funnily enough still the P90 that is the strongest weapon by far. The Deagle is better for long ranges, but otherwise the P90 beats all. At one point, spiders come webbing down the ceiling. This is just a nice little detail that I really loved. And I would have died at this point if I hadn't retextured them to be headcrabs. It's at this point in the mod that I believe a lot of people give up. For the past 4 hours of gameplay, you have done nothing but wander around aimlessly, simply going from place to place, sometimes meeting people who tell you to go elsewhere. There is no real consistency. The gameplay is fine enough most of the time, and the story is completely lost at this point. We are then on the coast. Mind you, at this point, we fell down approximately 20 shafts during the last hour. So to assume we are at sea level height now is quite a stretch. This coast section generally was fine. It featured another helicopter fight, which was fun. At one point we also find an upgrade for the Stayer, which made it better but still not stronger than the P90. We now enter the final area of this mod by moving inside of a container. It's then transported and we wake up with no weapons. A bit of a plot point I didn't get. We were locked inside of a container just until now. How did we lose our weapons? But oh well. We then move around this area and find it to be infested with zombies, spiders and flesh monsters. This area, although it does feature some nice puzzles, is the maziest of them all. Every area looks the same, so it's pretty hard to navigate. We then see this cool effect where eyes are stalking us from the dark. I love that detail. There's also a very short vision of a zombie walking towards us, which is ominous. I like it. We even come to find a clone of us being transported, looking like it's the same container as the one we saw early on in the game. We eventually come to find that we are on a ship in the Arctic. Is that a Borealis reference? The ship sinks a bit while we're on it, to which you have to instantaneously adjust or else you'll fall off and die, which I like actually. After roaming around the diagonal ship for a bit, we eventually find a way off it. I actually really like the entire ship segment. It was a little mazy, but overall, well put together. We are now in the Arctic. Again? What the fuck is even going on here? Why are we here? What's the point of all this? We are then tasked with blowing open a gate for a buggy, for which we have to find 3 TNT crates. This is a fun idea and concept, but pretty annoying in actuality. Though the mod did a good job of making the backtrack easier than the way to the crates. There's also a crane you can operate here, which I found to not even be needed, though perhaps I glitched something on accident. I found the final crate after about half an hour. By the way, if you jump into the water here, you will be attacked by the Missor, which I thought was cool. After finally blowing open the path, the driving section lasts for a solid 15 seconds before we have to get out again. Remember that one cutscene earlier, where we saw the antlion guard running around from his perspective, and how I said the mod will do this exact cutscene later on but pull it off way better? Well, this is where it happens. After getting out of our car and also seeing this scene, we again enter the antlion guard perspective, where we see it tracking us down. Which would have been even more creepy when it's the first antlion guard we encounter in this mod. This scene still with a lot of tension though, I really liked it. We find a random tunnel that turns out to be the entrance to a lab. In this tunnel we get this random cutscene of people eating in a restaurant, and then those same people turned into zombies. I don't mind the scene itself, it just felt pretty weirdly timed, like why now? We then enter this lab filled with zombies, Vostok Labs. After a ton of fighting against zombies in random corridors, we find a large text. This text is used to explain the entire lore once and for all, after not giving us anything for the past 9 hours. This text however is written in pretty broken English. Tooth? We're going to fully ignore this text, because it simply misleads the reader. either due to translating errors or because it simply wasn't formulated well. Which, to be fair, the story is really complex, so putting it into words is a challenge in and of itself. I will explain the full lore after we're done with the mod, since I got the official script of the mod sent to me by the creator. What you need to know right now is that Alex's sister injected Alex with TRIS-HC1, the zombie virus. It's not fully clear if this was on purpose or accidental. Going by the phone call at the beginning where she said he should quickly come to the lab, it probably was the latter. A new weapon can be found here. It's able to disintegrate enemies, thus actually quite powerful. After moving around a bunch of rooms with fine level design, we eventually reach this room, where we find a clone of Alex. The clone says that he himself is the real Alexander. This then turns into a boss fight similar to the one against the Healanth. I actually quite enjoyed it. We destroy crystals to weaken him. We then move up to the second stage, which was a way to make the arena a bit harder to navigate, as we now have the possibility of falling down. After we do manage to beat clone Alex, the entire facility explodes. Basically, Entropy 02. We see Alexander leaving the facility. Alex was actually custom animated in this sequence, which is pretty hard to do, so good work on that. Alex falls to his knees. We then see a vision of a large eye, similar to the one of Lord of the Rings, surrounded by flesh monsters. A vision of himself as a zombie appears standing in front of him. Alex remains on the ground, the camera zooms out, which is where the mod ends. It is not explained what happened to Alex here. Perhaps the leukemia got him. Yeah, remember that plot point? Perhaps it was the accidental injection of the TRIS-HC1 virus. There is one more scene where we see a bunch of zombies in a ruined city with a newspaper saying that Paris has fallen. Which I actually like the not happy ending of this mod. Though at the same time the ending is really confusing and leaves you with more questions than answers. One of the main criticisms this mod gets is its story, it being stretched out and not really explained well. Thankfully I managed to get in contact with the creator, so let me explain the full story as it was written in the French script. And then get into my final thoughts about this mod. Mind you, this was all translated and is probably at least slightly inaccurate in places. In the script, Get Alive is described as Resident Evil meets Hitman, Half-Life 2, Fahrenheit, a game released in 2005, and plus Belle la Vie, which directly translated means life is more beautiful, but is also the name of a French soap opera show, so make of that what you will. Here's the story. Alex has leukemia and treats himself with a diverted treatment from his sister. His sister works at Vostok, the lab we saw at the end. This treatment is called TRIS-HC1. The medicine turns people into zombies, which neither his sister or Vostok itself knew, even with hundreds of human guinea pigs at their facility. This adds the important context that Alex received this treatment for the first time just before the story started. Apparently at this point it's discovered that this virus turns people into zombies, which causes Alex's sister to panic and to report the fact that Alex was injected with it to Vostok, which leads to a team being sent to get him. She was aware Vostok would punish her as well and basically threw both of them under the bus. There was this part in tutorial dreams which I didn't bother mentioning earlier.
Get lost!
This apparently is meant to symbolize that the help of the sister fails. At this point, Alex's sister is out of the picture and irrelevant. All of this happened in half a day, which they admit in the script is pretty cramped. It's at this point Alex is assaulted by Evis at his work and knocked out. Between this and him waking up in the hospital, which is actually a lab by the way, is anything between 4 hours to 4 years. In this time, Vostok cloned Alex with the plan to study this Alex at the polar base. The old one was to be eliminated. Alex however managed to wake up, even though he was put into an induced coma. A ton of testing was done at this lab, and later we accidentally thaw or clone. This also causes every other zombie to wake up. The knockout where the tutorial dreams happened was another 4-hour time warp. In this time, Evis was organizing and the zombies have been spreading a bit. After this, we meet Professor Hermes, who worked at Vostok. This is all that's mentioned about him in the script besides him stupidly dying. It's at this point the script mentions being taken to Antarctica, which explains why we didn't hear anything about the story for so many hours. Nothing was planned between Professor Hermes and Antarctica, which is about 7 hours of gameplay. It's also revealed that it is our clone we see at the ship. At the end we come face to face with our clone. Apparently this is our only clone. All other zombies that look like us are not actually clones. Though the creator wasn't sure about this when I asked him. At this point Alex understands everything. And since his life doesn't make much sense anymore, after all he might be a clone, this is all quoted by the way, he engages in a deathmatch. By killing the other Alex and destroying the device he was sitting on, it causes the entire facility to blow up. After this, Alex passes out. The question of why is left open in the script. Does he turn into a zombie? Is he going to die? What the... To quote directly. The script then mentions potential ideas for a sequel in the form of a name and short description. Get Alive 2 in the footsteps of the clone, where we relive Alex's adventures but from the clone's side with other powers. Get Alive 2 the following, a sequel where Alex becomes a monster. Shout out to JC Omega for all the background details on this. He was the main creator of this mod. Now, obviously the story wasn't told all that well throughout the mod, and it leaves some questions open. Who exactly is Vostok? What happened to the sister? What exactly is the eye at the end? JC Omega also told me that working on the mod was basically a second full-time job for an entire year for everyone on the team. So actually making a sequel was out of the question. I also asked directly what the eye at the end meant. To which he said it didn't have any meaning most likely, to quote directly that it's totally bullshit, and then he himself speculated what that may be. Which is something that leads me straight into my next point and my final thoughts. You guys saw my review. Most things I noted were negatives. It's in those imperfections though, where there lies a charm that's hard to ignore. Most of the environments were really well made. The gameplay, however, is mostly a mixed bag. But I think it managed to hold a level of alright throughout. It really can test your patience with its incredibly long stretches of running around aimlessly. An experience only kept up by some of its unique elements, like the great new health system. And it being as hard as it is, it's a nice change of pace. General level design practices being broken and hard to follow story, all the things combined definitely give the mod the unique vibe it has. So, do I recommend playing Get Alive? I heavily hesitate doing so, and would say that for most people, no I would not. But it's not the gameplay itself that I find most endearing about Get Alive. I mentioned at the beginning of the video that Get Alive tells a story of passion, with which I did not refer to the actual story told inside this mod's universe. I was referring to that of the mod itself. On the website of the mod you can find a goodies section. It's a really outdated page, but you can still take a look at many behind the scenes images. You'll find images of a group of passionate young guys, crafting something they believed in. The mod doesn't have perfect level design. It doesn't have the perfect story. It doesn't have the perfect logic throughout its universe. It all feels mixed and mashed together. But that's the fun of making a mod. Did someone mention spiders? Hell yeah, throw them in. Did someone mention a church underground? Sounds cool, let's do that. A random mysterious eye at the end of the mod? Sure, why not? Their dedication shines through the mod. With each level you could see and feel the idea and care. With each weapon you could tell how much love was put into it. With bullet time, the unique health system, the crazy complex story, all of it tells a story about a group of modders simply creating things they thought were fun. It's an inspiring testament to the spirit of modding, the result of people bashing their brains together, breaking rules of level design and creating something that they thought was cool. And hell, it was! And they did it completely for free. Ultimately, while Get Alive is in no way an awful mod, it also very much isn't perfect. But that's what makes it beautiful. So while I may not urge everyone to go and play it, if the idea of exploring a labor of love sounds interesting to you, perhaps it is worth a shot. Get Alive isn't just a mod, it's a time capsule, a flawed yet fascinating glimpse into the creative world of modding. It's also the Source engine at its best, used as a sandbox for cool ideas. And at its core, that's what Source modding is all about. A passion to create. Still 0 out of 10 though, because that Coke wasn't a Sprite. Actually, real quick, remember to check out this pet using my link. You're sure to find something you love. And save money with the current sale using code WEEKEND, that is WKND. By getting one, you're not only doing yourself a favor, but also supporting me. Link is in the description. Okay, back to the outro.